Ladies, I am going to share with you our week 2 of living well at Citadel, and we'll get that going. All right, I think we're sharing. I think we're good. And there's my notes. Okay. All right. Well, last week was an intro to a low carb lifestyle and understanding the macros of protein, healthy fats, and carbs. This week, we're going to talk more about the benefits of a low carb or ketogenic diet. And did this cute little meme, don't give up. The mighty oak was once a tiny nut that held its ground. I want you ladies to take this one day at a time. This is a journey, not a race. It takes time to figure out which foods serve you well and how they make you feel and how they make you feel emotionally and physically. So it takes time. This is a journey, all right? You may choose to moderate certain foods, or you may find that you need to abstain completely from certain foods. We'll talk more about that kind of thing later when we talk about food and sugar addiction. I think that's week 5. And also, I want to emphasize that you do not have to be on a strict ketogenic diet or in ketosis to experience the amazing benefits from eating less processed and high carbohydrate foods. All right. I hope a lot of you saw that video I created about just starting a ketogenic diet, talked about how to become a fat burner and ketosis and all that. So let's look at some of the advantages of being low carb or ketogenic. Number 1, reduces food cravings. Hallelujah. I'm telling you, it really does. You feel satiated. And I'm not saying you'll never have another food craving, but you definitely will not feel like you do every hour or two where you want something more, okay? Number 2, brain fog lifts, a clearer memory. We can all benefit from that, right? Skin clears up. Now, I have a before and after of an example of this of my own. And this actually was this condition was on both hands, but I just got a picture of the one. And I also have petechia, which are tiny red spots all over the lower part of my legs that ended up going away after I got on this kind of diet. But I believe what these were a result of my diagnosis of a mixed connective tissue disease, which is an autoimmune disease that has signs and symptoms of a combination of disorders like lupus, rheumatoid, Sjogren's syndrome, and others that I just can't pronounce. It's basically considered an overlap disease due to the different ways that it can flare up. Let me show you the picture that I'm talking about though. Okay, so after a year and a half of being on a ketogenic diet, my blood numbers were completely changed. You can see what happened in my hand, and the autoimmune signatures were like gone from my blood work, except for the rheumatoid factor number, which was still elevated, but I didn't and still don't have any symptoms or signs of that unless I start eating really high carbohydrates again. So I want to emphasize, I don't necessarily stay in ketosis all the time. So it's not uncommon for me to have more than 20 carbs a day and still maintain health. But as long as I stay lower carb and I avoid processed foods, and then I come back, I kind of flex in and out of a strict keto diet to a little more relaxed low carb diet. I would still consider it ketogenic. But because of that, I remain mostly symptom free, except as I mentioned last month, I went in and just, had way too many of the wrong kinds of foods. And I started feeling all the pain again and all the inflammation, which is number 4 on our list, less inflammation, which affects every part of us. Inflammation is not only damaging, but it's painful. And when we're in pain, we're not ourselves. So really, I feel like this way of life, this way of eating helps us become ourselves better. Definitely a better version of ourselves. Weight loss is a great thing to experience. Less anger, less mood swings, anxiety calmed, and depression lifting. I just watched another seminar today about anxiety and depression and the effects of high carbohydrates on our bodies. And it's just fascinating to me how we can feel so much better by eating correctly, emotionally, physically, all of it. Um, a stronger immune system. I think I missed a couple. Sleep improves, fatigue lifts, increased mental health, a stronger immune system, improvements in IBS, gout, and Crohn's. Fatty liver improves, reversing type 2 diabetes. These don't happen overnight, but it is, they happen. They do. They really do. Our lives just get better. We feel better. And yesterday I watched a lecture by Robert Lustig, and I had to redo my whole slide presentation to add this one because I really wanted you to see it also. Some of these are overlap, but I mean, this is just amazing. This is from Bill Wilson, author of the book Brain Drain. And he does research and he studied the body composition of 6,000 obese patients, putting them through a DEXA scanner. And he also had them fill out questionnaires. And he found that there were 22 specific symptoms correlating with metabolic dysfunction. And it turns out they were all behavioral and quite common. But when he put them on a low carb diet, they improved in all these areas, he said. Or, you know, if this was their area, they improved in it, if this was part of what was bothering them. So, I mean, that's really amazing when you look at things like number 11, low self-esteem, and then low self-image, loss of empathy. Like these are, like you said, very much behavioral. They are how we see ourselves, how we think about ourselves. That will change. I mean, that's what's going to help us become that woman God created us to be, walking in the purposes and the things that God has for us in a way that reflects who we really are and who honestly He really is, our God, and being His daughter. So I mean, it's just it's amazing. Obsessive compulsive tendencies. I mean, I just really want you to feel better, ladies. I really want all of us to just feel better. And I really think this is going to help. So, how do we do that? Let's look at what a high carb or a low carb way of eating, what that does to our bodies. The top, we have the high carb, where we eat foods with higher carbohydrates, our glucose levels rise, our pancreas secretes insulin, and it's to help move that glucose into the cells to do the work that they need to do and to burn glucose for energy. Yeah, that's okay. When our cells become overloaded with insulin, they become insulin resistant, and this can lead to weight gain and all the metabolic syndrome that we talked about. So eating those foods, causing that insulin, all of that should be a natural process that happens. But when we overload that system with too high of carbs, it causes issues and problems in our body. But that is a picture of burning glucose for energy. And then, of course, the excess is going to be a problem. But the low carb eating, we eat protein and fats, and our glucose levels don't rise substantially. Well, in the absence of that sugar and glucose in the blood, the body finds alternative fuel source, meaning it's going to burn differently. The liver produces ketones. Our body will burn fat for fuel, and our brain will be using those ketones for energy and for fuel. We end up losing weight this way. Our inflammation goes down. Fatty liver gets better, along with all of the metabolic issues that we can face, the metabolic syndrome. And then through that process, our body can reverse even type 2 diabetes by becoming low carb or ketogenic. So what do we eat? We focused on meat and low carbs we talked about last night. I did send you home with that list, and it's also on my website. The meat can be red meat, seafood, chicken, pork, so many options of meat. If you're going to have veggies, I think that's great. Look at low carb veggies, lettuce, asparagus, cucumber, celery, cauliflower, broccoli. Focus on veggies that are above the ground, that are grown above the ground. The root vegetables are going to definitely be higher in carbohydrates. That's kind of the plant's sugar storage area. So it's going to be higher. Then butter it up. Eat butter, not margarine. Benefits of butter are great. It's made from dairy. It contains lots of nutrients, vitamin A, D, K2, and E. It contains calcium, can help with digestion. It's higher in the anti-inflammatory omega-3s, whereas margarine, which is made from hydrogenated or rancid vegetable oils, is higher in trans fats. And that can lead to our risk of cardiovascular disease. It can decrease our immune system working well. And just like the other unhealthy oils, it is definitely linked to obesity. Then let's skip the bun. Wrap it in lettuce or eat without a bun is a good way to lower carbs. Even when you're out at a restaurant, nobody looks at you sideways when you just say no bun, please. They're used to it. And I always add a little Caesar side salad or something without the croutons. And then eat eggs. Do not be afraid to eat eggs. Don't be afraid of cholesterol. It's been proven that eggs don't raise your cholesterol, as opposed to the myth that came out years back saying eggs were so bad. Eggs are loaded with vitamins. Again, vitamin A, E, D, and the B vitamins that help with all kinds of building blood cells, maintaining healthy nerve cells. And then don't skip the yolk. All the fats are in the yolk, all the good fats. These fats help maintain normal blood cholesterol levels and offer omega-3 fatty acids, which are needed for normal brain function. The energy density of your egg is coming from the yolk. There's an article in PubMed where it is quoted, the whole egg consumption improves lipoprotein profiles and insulin sensitivity to a greater extent than yolk-free egg substitute in individuals with metabolic syndrome. So eat the whole egg. Prioritize locally sourced eggs, locally raised eggs that have been pasture raised, so they've not been able to, or so they are able to run around and eat bugs and be healthy themselves. Those are a great place to get eggs, and thankfully we live in a community where there's a lot of places to get those. So the bottom line, while egg whites are healthy, you're much better off eating the whole egg, as the yolks are where the nutritional benefits come into play. Plus, gram for gram, whole eggs are also one of the most affordable and highest quality sources of protein available. So eat eggs. And then we've got our protein, which is nutrient dense. Meat is high in iron, magnesium, potassium, zinc, and all the B vitamins. And when we talk about iron, we talked about last night, let's look at a commonly held myth that spinach has more iron in it than anything else. And I think Popeye kind of brought that about. But it is a myth that spinach is the best form of iron. In fact, our body struggles to absorb iron in spinach. The majority of iron in spinach is not being absorbed by the small intestines and therefore is not usable by the body. Studies have shown that as little as 2% of iron from spinach is actually absorbed, but meat is around 15 to 35%. So it's good to eat meat. The iron in meat, fish, shrimp, and poultry are all better absorbed than any vegetable sources of iron. So that's a good thing. Stick with meat and animal proteins if you're looking for more iron. And don't get mad. I mean, I'm not saying spinach is bad. I'm just saying don't go to it for your iron. So now let's look at those food lists. I'm not going to spend a lot of time in this video going over that. We went over it quite a bit. Pretty self-explanatory, all the things. We did talk about smoothies, which is not on here. And I said we can't talk about fruit and not mention smoothies. Fruit smoothies have been touted as health food for years, but honestly, this couldn't be farther from the truth. When we talk about fruit, we have to talk about fiber. So when we blend fruit to make a smoothie, and especially when you have fruit as a juice, that fiber is not working like it would be. It is destroyed. So when you drink juice or smoothies, that fructose can overwhelm our small intestines and go right in towards our liver. And this can overwhelm our liver's ability to metabolize that fructose. And that then can over time turn into excess fructose and turn that excess fructose into fat. Over time, that leads to fatty liver, and this is where we start seeing non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And over the past 3 decades, levels of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease have been soaring. Obviously, high fructose corn syrup is one of the biggest offenders, but blending fruit and drinking fruit juices is also another area we want to be very careful with, okay? Because I do have a lot of clients that come to me and say, well, I have my fruit smoothie every morning, and you know what? It's just pumping so much glucose into your system, which is causing your body, your insulin, to have to pump so much more out. And when fruit is not intact, it just goes unimpeded into our system, and those high levels of insulin are just very possibly going to lead us to insulin resistance, which is a big problem. So if you're going to have fruit, have it intact, because if you're having it blended or as a juice, it's probably going to make you sick and fat if you continue to have it over a period of time. Another thing we talked about was that a lot of people say, well, I think the ketogenic diet, a low carb diet is horrible because you eliminate fruits. Well, first of all, you don't eliminate fruits, but you do pay very close attention to fruits, because you want fruits that are not high in sugars. And there's a reason for that. Ancestrally, what we have for fruit today and ancestrally don't even compare. And I did show you this picture of strawberries, bananas, and watermelons. And ancestral appropriate strawberries, they say, were about the size of blueberries, for one thing. But our modern fruit is so hybridized that it's become something it wasn't back in the day. Okay. And not only is it so hybrid to the point of being abnormally sweet and nothing like our ancestors ate, they also didn't have 24/7 access to all this super sweet fruit, which barely resembles the fruit that our ancestors ate. So my advice on fruit is eat fruit in its original form so the fiber is intact. Avoid smoothies and fruit juice. Try to eat fruit in season, and think of fruit as an occasional treat. All right, that will be good. You know, really pay attention. I know on a ketogenic diet, they say, you know, berries are probably your best bet. Blackberries, raspberries, strawberries tend to be the lowest carb if you want to have them in moderation, and that is just fine. So, and yes, as you see on the list, olives and avocados are also considered fruit. So pantry items, we talked a little bit about nuts and nut butters. You want to be careful. It's very easy to overeat them. And if you're getting nut butters, make sure that you're also just getting them that say the nut and salt are the only ingredients. So if it's peanuts, salt, almonds, salt, you know, those are the only 2 ingredients you want to see in there. You don't have to have the salt. I'm just saying that would be fine if that's listed. Avoid the big name peanut butters. You're going to have lots of nasty processed oils and sugars and that. And then we talked about with the dairies, stuff like that, avoid things that are low fat. Most of those low fat items have higher carbs and sugars, which they add to make them taste better, because low fat is yuck. And then on our avoid list, you can see the unhealthy seed oils we talked about, any sweetened drinks. We spent a little bit of time talking about the sweeteners that that are out there. I would say avoid the things, the sucralose, the aspartames, those, they've just been shown to be like hormone disruptors in our body. And I think there's several studies on like Diet Coke, how people regularly drinking Diet Coke, that actually made them more hungry. There's a lot of studies out there. Obviously, a lot of times people are eating or drinking Diet Coke with their Big Mac and fries too, so that could play into it. But stevia, monk fruit, and allulose, I would say right now are the 3 safest versions if you're going to have a sugar alternative. They're finding out some really great research on allulose, which is very interesting. I would still have those in moderation. If you're anything like me, you're going to have some stomach issues with it. I get a lot of gas and bloating if I have those sweeteners. So you just figure out what works for you. Erythritol is in a lot of things. The jury's kind of out on erythritol right now. I've read a few different studies. Some say it's great. Some say they're finding issues with it. So I would stick to monk fruit, allulose, and stevia for me. Again, you have to decide what works for you. I know some of you are questioning why our Sacred Healthy Oatmeal is on that avoid list. Well, oatmeal is very high in carbohydrates. A half a cup is 30 grams of carbs, and it will give you a quick spike in blood sugar, thus setting you up for your whole day, if you have it in the morning, of a roller coaster of insulin spikes and followed by blood sugar drops. So oats do not keep you full long, and you will have, they'll have you foraging in an hour or so because you're going to need more food. You're going to be hungry again. Also, oatmeal is full of plant fiber, so it can cause gas and bloating and often irritates our colon. Now, in this picture here, which hopefully shows up better on your screen than it did last night, the colors were too dull, but that red is instant oatmeal. It shows this is a blood glucose level after someone has eaten instant oatmeal. The yellow is steel cut oats, and then the green is an omelet. So a lot of times we think, well, the steel cut must be better. Turns out they really both, regular instant and the steel cut, have about the same amount of carbohydrates, and you can clearly see the spike is about the same. However, there's much better little hill with that omelet. So this graph just shows that the instant oatmeal was rapidly digested and absorbed, increasing blood glucose levels on study participants. By contrast, eating the veggie omelet resulted in a slower increase in blood glucose than either of the oatmeal. And I would say if you're going to have a veggie omelet, then you should add bacon or sausage or something to have with it, have a little protein with it. So I regularly get asked about specific meal plans to hand out, and I don't do that. And here is why. I believe that each of us need to make a personal effort to look at the foods on that low carb list, choose the ones we like, and come up with our own food plans. Because how many times, ladies, have we been handed a menu plan and only to do it for maybe a couple weeks, and then we toss it because we get tired of it? We're like, well, I can't eat this food one more time. There's just so many options out there. I want this to be different this time. I want this time to be about what you want to eat, what you like to eat. And this hinges on your decision to create your plan to make it work. And I have found, and I believe wholeheartedly, that when you take the effort and you make a plan that is customized to your distinct taste and palate, you'll stick with it far longer and far better than if I tell you what to do and how to eat. Okay. And like specific meals, this half a cup of this and a cup of that. I just don't want to do that. Now, I did create you some helps on my website, like I talked about. There are pages. That resource page has links to many websites that will show you plans, but they have a ton of options. So you can look at all those. And they have great resources. I have podcasts on there. I have books and websites filled with ideas and recipes to help you on this journey. The Carb Manager app can also help with that. And that also really helps you dial in how many carbs you're eating and stuff like that. Pay attention to things like revamping our thoughts. We talked about actually revamping our thoughts on things like breakfast, because we have this idea of what breakfast has to look like. And it's usually a lot of grains or cereals or bagels or breads. We need to rethink breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And we need to realize that you can do anything. You can have leftover steak for breakfast, and that's just fine. You can have eggs and bacon for dinner. I do it all the time. We've been kind of programmed to believe a certain way. Well, remember, the cereal companies are the ones that said to us that breakfast was the most important meal of the day, and it should be cereal fortified with their vitamins and minerals and all that stuff. So we want to hack all that, and we want to rethink what is really healthy and relearn these things that we frankly were taught wrong for a lot of years. So you have the food list. I really want you to create some of your own eating plans and ideas. However, I want to say I'm happy to help you. I'm happy to give you ideas or answer any questions that you have on what to eat and how to eat and when and all these things. So know that. Reach out to me anytime through our group, message me on Facebook. I think some of you even have my text or email. However you want to do that, I am more than happy to help you on this journey outside of our Tuesday nights. So feel free to reach out and I will get back to you at don't worry you're bugging me. I'll get back to you when I can. So as long as you understand that and we get that, you can reach out anytime. So choose your journey. You can jump in fast and cut all the sugar and do all the things, or you can take this one day at a time. What works best for you? Start lowering your sugar and carbohydrate intake and just build on that. Build a good, take it one day at a time, have a good day, and then build on that and have another good day. And before you know it, you're linking all these days together and you've had a good week. We can do it. You can do it. But honestly, you're the one who has to do it. I can't make you. I don't care all the great information I can give you. You're the only one that can decide, and you know when you can decide. And we talked last night about how some of you are just taking this class to learn, and then you're going to decide when you're going to do this journey. That is fine. That is fine. Do it at your pace. So the benefits of taking it slower are that your brain and your body can adjust to the changes. Remember, insulin is a hormone. So when you start lowering carbohydrates and your body's trying to balance that insulin levels out again, you might need some time to adjust to that. So take your time. You'll have fewer side effects of cravings and fatigue and jitteriness or crankiness, because those are all related to cutting out carbs really fast. So you figure it out. If you're the kind of person that says, I have to stop all at once, I have a hard time moderating the amount I eat, so I have to abstain, then that's what you do. I'm here for you. Whatever you do, it's your journey, your way. I don't want you to see this as a diet. I want this to become a lifestyle this time that you never get off. Okay, we get off diets. We're never getting off this one. Let's not get off it this time. Let's live this. Okay, whatever it looks like for you, let's live this. So, all right, next week we're going to be talking about more specifically, more details on metabolic health. And so yeah, that is where we are at. So I will see you Tuesday. I hope to hear from you in the meantime. Thanks, ladies.